And I'm thrilled to now be joined on Locked On Pac-12 by Danny Kanell, CBS college football analyst, also does some work for FS1 and Sirius XM Radio. We love bringing him on for our Pac-12 Prime Picks. This week brought to you by Bet Online. Danny, a lot of big numbers on the board this week. It's been a theme over the last few weeks in the Pac-12. If there's going to be a shakeup, it'd be a pretty big upset, but some very, very interesting little things to watch for in the numbers that I look at this week in the Pac-12.
Totally agree, Spencer. It's great to be back with you. I cannot wait to see how this thing shakes out. And how about the resurgent year the Pac-12 has had? I think it's awesome. I think it's great for the conference. 4 teams in the top 13, and you've got multiple teams that have a legitimate playoff chance. That's about as good a year as you could ask for. Now it'll be really fascinating to see how this thing closes out the season.
I am as well. And so let's get into our prime picks, which I got back over 500 this week. It's been a little up and down, but a clean sweep would be really good. So I might lean on your insight here. Might ride with my gut. We'll kind of see how it goes. But the first one I like is the Cougars have been very good to me this year. Washington State here in the prime picks. They've hit every time I've picked them to cover. They're 7.5 point favorites at home against Arizona State. And my initial reaction, this line opened at 9. It's moved down to 7.5. My initial reaction was, I think that could be a letdown bounce back spot of sorts for Washington State at home against an Arizona State team that is a little better than you'd think, but still not very good. But I eventually came down on the Cougars side of things here, Danny. I think they win by at least 10 because I look at that Arizona State defense and I say it's kind of comparable to Stanford. And the Cougars' offense has been hit and miss, but they've exploited defenses that have given up points this year, and their defense at home has been nasty.
I'm with you. Getting and I like the Cougars too. Getting off that 3-game slide, I think, was huge for them. And now you come down the stretch, and I think if you're thinking about bowl eligibility, which at this point in the season you're 5-4, you're trying to think of what motivates a team. That is something you absolutely have to look at. And then if you look further down the schedule, road game at Arizona, Washington, top 25 opponent, could be a little bit tricky in that rivalry game. So I think it's kind of like you've got to take advantage of it while you can. I think they'll be highly motivated. And that offense was clicking on all cylinders last week with the 52-point outburst. So I think they'll kind of carry that momentum into this one. And on the flip side, it's hard to go. Arizona State has been so up and down all season. There, of course, with 3 games remaining, could they win out? Potentially. I think you'll get their best effort early in this game, but I think late, I think Washington State pulls away.
The other thing that makes me lean towards the Cougars here is this game is in Pullman. Arizona State just had a big offensive week, but that was in the desert. It's warm, it's sunny, it's comfortable. Now you go up to Pullman, it's going to be under 40, might be under 30 degrees at some point in this game. I know Cam Ward is new to Pullman, but he's played games up there this season. I always feel like that is a big advantage, especially for an Arizona State team that can run the ball a little bit, but really has done a lot of their damage through the air with Trenton Bourguet in there at quarterback. But the other thing too, Danny, aside from Oregon, whose offense has been unstoppable essentially in Pac-12 play since that Georgia game, really all season long, other than the Georgia game, of course, no team has managed more than 21 points in Pullman this year. And although Arizona State's offense had a big week last week, UCLA's defense can be a little hit and miss. That was at home. That was in the desert. It was in a warm climate. Now you go on the road to that Cougars defense, which is the hallmark of their team. Jake Dickert's a defensive coach. I think they're going to keep the Sun Devils at least under 24. And I think with the way Cam Ward and that offense are playing, they won't put up 52. They were helped by turnovers from Stanford a week ago, but I do think they can cover that 7.5. I think they win. We'll see if a late touchdown determines it, but I think it's going to be at least in the 10 to 17 range.
Totally agree. I see exactly kind of the same way that would unfold there, and a little bit of an under-the-radar game here in the Pac-12.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be the closest one, at least according to the lines, because the other ones, there's some big ones out there. So next one I like, UCLA at home. This is one of those key numbers I talked about earlier. It's under 20 points right now, 19.5. If it goes over 20 and you get 20.5 with some late line movement, I might lean Arizona, but under 20, that Wildcats defense, Swiss cheese implies there are areas that don't have holes. It's just, it's barely even cheese. It's there. It's on the field, but they're not stopping anybody on a weekly basis. They scored enough to cover against USC, not against Utah, but I feel like UCLA at home, they're on a mission after that Oregon loss, and they're giving up less than 20. I think that it's a lot of points. It's a lot of points, but UCLA just won't be stopped in this game.
I don't think so either. I think coming down the stretch, it's almost like bowl season when you get there early. Like who's motivated, who wants it more, who's going to put in the work leading up to the practice, because everybody wants to show up for the game and play, but it really does take place the week leading up. And with Arizona looking at 5 straight losses in the face and really wasn't competitive in the Utah game, that was one where I thought they might cover in that one. I was wrong on that one because they had played USC so tough. But I think this one, I think UCLA I'm sure that Chip Kelly will go show them the USC game and say, hey, look at what this team is capable of if you take them lightly. So I think they'll go out there and I think they'll put down, impose their will on the Arizona Wildcats. I'm with you. I think this will be a big win here too. You start getting those, the CFP rankings, you start tasting what could be at stake. There's more to play for. I think they'll come in fine-tuned and ready to go because that's really the only thing. The talent is there. It's if you overlook an opponent. But coming down the home stretch, I mean, every game kind of feels like a playoff game. So I think UCLA will come up ready to go.
I like Arizona's offense a lot. I mean, Jaden
Delores
has
done a fantastic job turning this program in the right direction. The one thing about them, like losing games, but they've been competitive in most of their games, and they've absolutely turned a corner. So you have to feel like better about the program. I think UCLA is just in a different level right now.
Yeah, I agree. And with the USC comparison, I like that you brought that up because Arizona did hang around, and I didn't think they would. I had that as a USC pick because I looked at it and said, no, I think that USC is just going to be basically unstoppable, and they were. But that USC defense is struggling in a bad way. They allowed 35 points to Cal. Game came down to the final possession. Like the defense is starting to come back to regress to the mean a little bit compared to what they did early in the season. I think UCLA's defense is not the strength of the team, but I think it's better than USC's. I think that Latu is a fantastic player. I think on the back end they've been more consistent from what I've seen. Not as many big plays. I think they'll probably pick off Delora probably just one time, but I think their ability to just get off the field sooner is why I've got a little bit more confidence in the Bruins there. As long as it's under 20. If you're listening to this or watching this and the line is creeped up to over 20. I definitely lean the Wildcats. That just seems ripe for a backdoor cover if you tell me the line's 20.5. But at 19.5, take the Bruins. Here's an interesting one, Danny. And this line, depending on where you look, moves around a little bit. And it's Cal getting 2 touchdowns at Oregon State. My buddy talked me off the ledge of taking Cal last week against USC 21.5. Cal just doesn't get beat badly that often. But the other thing you have to consider here is that Oregon State at Reser Stadium has been a really good team, and they have beat teams handily. They beat Boise by 17. They beat the Cougars by 14, and the Cougars took care of Cal pretty handily earlier this year. They beat Colorado 42-9. Like, they have been dominant inside of Reser this year. Where are you leaning with this one?
I'm leaning towards the home dog here in this one. I do. I think it's one of those games where you see that defense show up. Oregon State, not exactly dynamic offensively. They want to bring that run game, had their quarterback issues kind of throughout the year. I think you'll be able to see Cal keep it close enough here to cover that number on the backside.
And that's a road dog. Remember, this is in Corvallis. So this is Cal at Oregon State. That's why I'm kind of on the fence about it because my instinct is like that's a lot of points. Take Cal, they keep it close, but Cal kept it close with USC because their offense scored, their defense, but it's kind of that push and pull. I feel worse about Cal's offense against this Oregon State defense, but I feel better about this Cal defense against that Oregon State offense led by likely again Ben Gulbranson.
I'll say the defense travels. I'll stick with my pick, even though I totally screwed up the home field, home dog in this one. I'll go ahead and stick with it and say the defense comes through.
Okay, I think I'm with you
Another
there,
program too, like, and we talked about the Pac-12 a little bit. Like, this is starting to showcase the depth of the conference. The job that Oregon State has been, showed up in the top 25 last week, had the loss against Washington, but still, this is a good football team. You're starting to showcase some depth in the conference too.